Our next session in the Global Collaboration track is U.S. Federal Perspectives on Quantum. Our moderator for this session is Dr. John Sawyer from the University of Maryland. Panelists are Dunkin from the Department of Energy, Justin Fanelli from the Navy and DHA, and Xavier Soosai from the National Institutes of Health, CIT. Please welcome John, Ann, Justin, and Xavier.
All right, so thank you to everyone who is here. I am extremely excited about this panel. So first, just a quick introduction. My name is John Sawyer. I am the Executive Director of the Mid-Atlantic Quantum Alliance. I help to coordinate the region's efforts, which include a number of our federal partners, our industry partners, and our academic partners, to really accelerate the development of this ecosystem. This is an amazing panel that I am super excited about. You probably couldn't get a better cross-section of the federal government and the opportunities for quantum technologies. So I'm gonna ask our panelists to very quickly introduce themselves, provide their larger vision for how quantum is going to intersect with their agency's missions, and then give us a little bit of a set of milestones and maybe even a timeline, if you're willing to commit to time, for the implementation and the adoption of these technologies at the enterprise level. So Ann, can I start with you?
Sure, that's a really short, simple question there. So Ann Dunkin, Chief Information Officer, Department of Energy. Just sort of the background about DOE. We have 4 major mission areas at DOE. The first is nuclear security and nuclear nonproliferation. So our job is not only to keep nuclear material out of the hands of the wrong people, but to ensure that we are able to maintain the nuclear stockpile so that we are able to maintain that deterrence capability. Second, as a power delivery mission, we provide bulk power to 36 states. We operate the grid in 36 states as well. So we sell power that are generated by other parts of the government. The third is the clean energy transition from the standpoint of policy. So, and that looks like loans, grants, things that help move us to all of the above technologies in clean energy. And then fourth is our research mission, right? So we run the 17 national labs, which we consider to be this country's engine of innovation. So when you look at the national labs, that's where the vast majority of our quantum mission lives. And I look at our quantum work in 3 ways. So first of all, we have people in our labs. We've got at least 5 labs, probably more, that are working to move forward the state of the art in quantum computing. So that's everything from quantum networking to quantum sensing to developing substrates to figuring out how to cool quantum computers, right? To building small quantum computers and trying to expand those. So that's that mission. The second piece for quantum is how we use quantum to enable the rest of our research mission. So all research is computational now. Even if you're doing work on a bench, you're going to do computational work to support that. Great example is use of quantum at PNNL with Microsoft to reduce the number of battery candidates dramatically, and so that they took away probably 3 years of work in a couple months, and they were able to identify prime candidates and then go and do the bench work. So that's an example there. And then the third thing is obviously, like everybody else, how somewhere in the future is quantum going to enable enterprise computing and our day-to-day work, because eventually it will get there. I have no real opinions on timelines that are gonna be better than anybody else's, but I would say that we certainly, from a post-quantum encryption standpoint, we're worried about a time frame of now for collecting data, but also expecting to see adversaries with computers within the next decade. That's my best timeline.
Great, thank you so much. Justin.
Good afternoon, Catalysts. So Justin Fanelli, couple jobs. Chief Technology Officer for Department of Navy, so Navy and Marine Corps. Tech Director of PEO Digital, I think acquisition, and then still doing some advising on the healthcare side. For Department of Navy, we recently, just in the last couple weeks, issued Information Superiority Vision 2.0. This is focused on what it says, but how we do that is optimize, secure, and decide. You can see quantum all over and throughout each of those. Our mission hasn't changed, but how we get there, how we deliver that, where quantum can help that mission is something that we want to be pullers on if the value is there. And so how we see all of this in terms of timeline happening or playing out, there are so many things that we don't control, but if you're not ready when the window of opportunity opens, then you've missed it. And so what we've done is we've tried to tilt the floor away for all disruptive capabilities from being an uphill battle, it still is, to a more flat level playing field. And we've done that through a couple mechanisms. One is the ACDCs, so the Accelerating Change Design Concepts for how we have common frameworks and simplify getting into the government, and then putting a little bit more impetus, onus, and pressure on the private side of the public-private partnership to contextualize how you are providing or how we can get increased value for what we can do with quantum near term. So from a timeline perspective, we're all aware of the new NIST issuance. The thing that we're more aware of within the Pentagon is the Davidson window, which is 2 years away, and then Q-Day, which is something that from a threat response perspective that we're all tracking. So we are looking for solutions to help mitigate both offensive and defensive possibilities. We are tracking those within our investment horizons, and the sooner they're ready, the sooner that we can adopt.
Great, thank you. Xavier.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is a pleasure to be here along with my colleagues, Anne and Justin. My name is Xavier Soosai. I am a Director of IT Services within Center for Information Technology and also CIO for CIT. Many of you may know NIH has been the leading biomedical research agency under the Department of Health and Human Services. Just to get to be very clear on the mission perspective, I want to read this. Making important scientific discoveries that improve health and save lives. NIH has got multiple institutes and centers. In Justin's side, they call them ICs. They are intelligent communities. But from NIH, it is called institute and centers. 27 of them. And each of them has a different mission. And each of them does the research on the human body in order to help and improve the health of, save lives on that. But all of them have even though they have a different mission, they all work towards achieving the health. More information, just notes on nih.gov has got all the information about what we do. From CIT, we are a traditional computing service provider for all the institutes. We provide a high-performance computing offering to the scientists and data scientists and all of them. They use our high-performance computing. And we do provide the networking, the traditional network and LAN, WAN, and collaborations tools and all of them. But what we are excited about is this new technology, as Anne and Justin was talking about. In order to improve the discoveries, scientific discoveries, we are very excited to explore this opportunity to work with the partners, work with the DOE, work with other agencies to explore where we can bring these services to the PIs and partners for them to explore. As we heard from this conference this morning, it's in the early stage for quantum computing, even though quantum sensing has been in production for a while. Quantum computing, we are in the early transformation. We thought about this in NIH, what we need to do while we are waiting for the quantum computing to get maturity. We started creating kind of a framework, right? The framework has got 5 parts. First part is the partnership with the private vendors, partnership with the DOE, partnership with other agencies, and educating ourselves from the executive level as well as at the medium programming level, and also what is out there for accelerating it. And then the second is more on the talent and training. I think a lot of people are, as you look at the federal government, we've got a lot of excellent workforce, but they are all in the way of older ages, right? So we are looking at what can we do to bring some talent and training in the quantum computing while we are waiting for that. And then obviously data security aspect of it. I think we are going to have a discussion about the post-quantum security perspective. So we are working on creating a strategy how this, while it is coming up, how it is going to be aligning with the ZTA, how it is going to be aligning with the rest of the post-quantum cryptography, and all of them are being lined up. So from the CIT perspective, we are just waiting and trying to explore all these opportunities to wait for. Question on the timeline, depending on who you ask and how you ask, somebody says quantum computing is, within 3 years or 5 years, but we are still waiting for the right level of use cases to build up. And recently, we published a paper working with the DOE. I think you may find it interesting if you go to OSTI.gov, search for NIH DOE potential use case paper, quantum computing and biomedical computational data sciences. There are few use cases, potential use cases we have explored, and you will be able to help us as a partners. So that's where we are, and we're looking forward to have a good conversation.
Great.
Great, thank you all. So I think you have helped to highlight the broad range of user types and data types that each of you are having to manage across each of your enterprises. And each of you obviously have significant high-performance computing capabilities. So I was hoping you might be able to sort of share some of the pros and cons and how you're thinking through cost, flexibility, the different options for adopting these quantum computing systems either via the cloud or on-premises devices, and kind of what your thinking is for taking that to the enterprise level. So as you highlighted, you have a number of different constituents who might be at different points. So maybe it would be useful to kind of talk through some of the milestones that you see for each of those types of users.
So sure. So as I said, we've got 3 essential general use cases for quantum at DOE. The first are the people who are interested in developing quantum, and that may be the pure development from the I'm trying to develop the hardware, trying to figure out how to make it actually do computation, to the people who are trying to figure out how to use that to augment our HPC performance, right? Because we put together HPC, AI, quantum, right? That extends our capabilities to do interesting things together. So but these are all the people who are trying to advance the state of the art of the technology itself. And research is expensive, but and we know that, and the more complex the research gets, the more expensive it gets. But we do that on premise, right? So we're not worried about, well, it would be cheaper to do this in the cloud because that doesn't make sense, right? We can't develop this state-of-the-art capability in the cloud. So we're going to do that on premise, and we're going to be on the bleeding edge of what's happening there, and those timelines are going to be driven by that. In terms of what our researchers who use quantum for computation do, right? All science has now become computational, as I said earlier. Even if you're doing bench science, you're going to use computation to advance it. But we're also using computation for super large projects like the NIF. I would argue that the reason that Lawrence Livermore has a supercomputer is because they have the NIF. And the NIF is where we are developing, it's one of the 2 bets we have at DOE on developing fusion. There's another one on the East Coast with a totally different technology at Princeton. But Livermore's got if you've ever seen Star Trek Into Darkness, and you see the warp core, that's actually the NIF. It was filmed at the NIF. So that's what the NIF looks like, developing fusion reaction, right? Our goal is how do we integrate PQC into that life cycle of research computing help us do things better, faster, advance the state of the art. In that case, we kind of don't care where it is, right? It may be on premise because it may be working with our on-premise supercomputer and that may make sense. Or in fact, it may have the on-premise HPC burst out to the cloud, or the whole thing might be in the cloud. We don't care where it is because the goal is to do the compute, work with it, not to advance that art. The third use case I have is when we get to the point where PQC enables enterprise computing. And I don't know what that looks like, right? Presumably, if you think about all this AI, right, and all the computation required behind AI, it's probably going to be a big play around how do you enable AI, and maybe that we find the singularity that way. I don't know. But the point is that in that case, I really don't want it. I don't want it on premise. I don't want to manage it. I don't want to deal with it. That's going to be out in the cloud. That I want to go use and consume as a service from somebody else. I don't want it to be my problem. So the first timeline, and I'm not going to give you absolute dates because like I said, good guess, but first timeline is that research mission, right? The developing the capability is going to start. It's going to continue out for foreseeable future. It'll then pick up the mission around using the capability. And then lastly, we'll start to see the enterprise uses come in because for an enterprise standpoint, you are going to have to wait for PQC to become affordable because certainly, quantum to become affordable. You can see where my head is right now.
Sorry.
That's okay, it's my fault. But where quantum becomes affordable because, these other things are gonna be really expensive. We care less about how expensive they are. We care in the enterprise about that being affordable.
Continuing with the maturity story, we'll sometimes get the question like, hey, what does the government or what does the Department of Navy think about quantum? What does Pennsylvania think? Right, so at the molecular level, which is probably where it matters most, there are, for me, using Ann's construct, 3 buckets of buyers or spenders and 3 mindsets around those. So it's not necessarily that there's a life cycle manager that is watching and matriculating from one to the next, right? There's the research, and we have that, they have more, but we have the research piece, and they're looking at, basic and applied, this is what our DT&E money can be spent on. We have experimentation, same color of money, but can you improve something, or can you do something that we're not currently doing? Again, slightly smaller money, but that's the art of the possible. That might even be within big acquisition, but it's research and development money. And then the big pocket of money is, can you replace something or divest something or turn something off because you're doing it at value with improved capability at some level, even if it's not apples to apples. And so that third one, we suggest that you're using number 1 and number 2 to get to a better contextualized story for number 3 so that we can divest off of tech debt or old investments and allow those disruptive capabilities to come in through the door. One of the ways to try and simplify that we've laid out is within the Innovation Adoption Kit, we have a framework for how we think about these trade-offs. What is the adaptability? What is, if most of what we're talking about is a function of resilience in terms of PQC and other activities there, what does this do to resilience? Does it make us more secure? Okay, that's nice, but we don't have an unlimited budget for slightly more secure or a lot more secure. It's what does this do to our resilience, and where are we spending on resilience now that we are seeing a game change effect? That's where we can go in and be better value investors and argue for that. So as you think about which groups that you're talking to and how to convert them and what this looks like as a portfolio, that's our mindset.
Yeah, so a lot of people ask question, is quantum computing going to replace our HPC? The answer is no, right? I think we heard from last year, we heard from this morning, we heard yesterday, as Ann was saying, there is a use case for quantum computing, and the existing high-performance computing is going to be there forever, right? So to speak about the cloud versus on-prem, certainly depending on the maturity of the quantum computing today, it doesn't have any compelling use case for us to build one on-prem for us, for NIH specifically. Even if we want to do it, I think we would be working with our partners, DOE, and other agencies who have a need for being on-prem. But predominantly, we started looking at how do we accelerate this quantum education while that is coming up. Quantum acceleration program has got multiple opportunity for us to educate ourselves, creating some kind of a sandbox with the existing vendors through go and feel how our PIs and data scientists can put their hands in and play around. That is the kind of opportunity that we are looking at. And there is always a question about what comes next on the HPC. What comes next is some of the examples that we saw this morning with Microsoft, with other vendors, is the extension of that. So we don't have any use cases that is going to be working closely with us, but it is always, in this case, working with our partners, trying to create some kind of potential use cases. And we have a couple of institutes within the NIH, they are exploring, creating some kind of a challenge for the community. The challenge.gov has got a lot of opportunities to go out to the industry, and then they do the sales pitch back to the NIH for potential use cases for the quantum computing. And then if we find that to be effective and true, then we will take it to next level where we might want to have some access to the quantum computing. So at this point of time, in terms of timeline as well as resources needs, we are not looking at in any near term for the quantum computing.
Great, thank you. To switch gears a little bit here, so looking at post-quantum cryptography. So 2 years ago, the Biden-Harris administration obviously issued National Security Memorandum 10 that committed that we are going to do this. Roughly a month ago, NIST finally released their first set of algorithms, and so we're off to the races. So I guess my question is, how prepared are you? What is your vision for implementing it? And what is keeping you up at night as the projection is what, $7.1 billion over the next 10 years to be able to implement this?
So I love that projection because we projected over $1 billion just at DOE, and we think that's low. So because the fundamental problem is that we're going to have to replace a lot of software and hardware to get this done. So in terms of where we are, right? So we have inventoried to the best extent possible, which means we probably have an 80 to 90% inventory of what we've got out there, what our applications are, what kind of encryption they have. And then the issue then is what are your highest value assets from an encryption standpoint, right? We've got a set of high value assets. Those aren't necessarily the same, the way we define high value assets, as those we think of as high value for encryption. For example, some of our high value assets are control systems for power plants. There's not a lot of data going on there. And so, yes, we will care about being able to encrypt those communications, but our concern there is much further down the road than is for systems with lots of data, because as we all know, people are gathering data now and going to decrypt it later. So it's a race to get those new encryption algorithms in place as soon as we can. So we're going to look at those assets that have the most data, our email systems, our file storage systems, places where we're moving a lot of data that is high value. We've got a lot of nuclear security data, obviously, that will be valuable for many, many years. So all those things that we're going to be looking at how we deal with, because it's really the in-transit part, obviously, that we are most concerned about in this case. Those are the algorithms that are going to get broken, and those are also the opportunities for people to steal your data for the most part, unless, obviously, they're getting into your systems. And then you got a different problem entirely, and encryption may not be the issue. So we're looking at what are our solutions, what are our systems we've got to get to first, and then working with those vendors on how we're going to be able to get those systems either replaced or retrofitted as soon as possible. We're also looking at vendors and saying, look, just like we went away from writing big monolithic code when we moved out of the mainframe age to modular software development, we need modular encryption. We need for you to be able to give us an encryption module that you can then replace at a later date if needed. So those are some of the big things we're thinking about, and it's a huge lift, and this is a long tail on this. It's going to take us a decade or more, probably or more, and so we really need to laser focus in on the stuff that's the greatest risk.
Great.
And you mentioned race. The idea of a marathon kind of suggests to me that we have to pace ourselves. I've done one marathon, never again. It is boring. It is the least exciting type of race. Relay races are way more fun to watch and to be a part of. And so I don't think any part of us should be kind of like slowing down and embracing for the next 10 to 15 years. This should not feel like a marathon, except for the pain part. We have to dance faster. So if we're foxtrotting, we need to get to mambo or tango very fast. And the way that we do that is the private sector leans in harder, and they lead, and they educate. The idea of dual citizens, where we have folks who understand our domain coming from industry and saying, hey, what about this use case, works so much better than, what are your problems for quantum? I don't know. Let's meet on Saturday and talk about that. Have you thought about these 3 use cases? They're working in private sector very well. This one will be ready here. Here is the potential benefit over what you're doing. Here are the systems that you're using to do this right now. Now we can have a conversation. Not in 3 years, right now, and start that planning. So the more detail that we can get on that contextualization for supply chain routing and optimization, for targeting and automated target retrieval and recognition. These are things that can help what we're doing right now in terms of planning. Offensive decryption is on our radar. From a healthcare perspective, there are lots, but what are the benefits and when will they be ready and where should we invest and where is it ready for enterprise? These are things that you're thinking about more than we are. So the more chewed that is when it comes to us, kind of the better the conversation goes.
Yeah, continuation of what Ann was saying, we have been waiting for the NIST guidelines to come, right? Now it is here. So the first step that we are doing, or we have been asking our teams to do, is to get the inventory of all the things. What are the high value asset data sets? What are the high systems that is being impacted? And potentially not knowing what is likely to be happening on that one, but we need to know what is the size and scale and scope of that thing is likely to be impacted. So we are collecting all of them. We have some system to collect all these inventories. And then we will look at what is going to be the next step. One of the things that we are currently looking at it is we have the cybersecurity framework. Can we add this PQC to be one of the verticals or maybe a horizontal? I don't know exactly where it is, because it's going to be touching all data sets. It is going to be touching all the systems eventually. So we are trying to create that as one of the work streams within the cybersecurity framework so that it becomes part of our regular hygiene in the future, right? And I'm sure there are a lot of expansion of the framework from CISA will be coming on our way when the PQC is, now that guidelines is out. So we will be looking for guidance and lean towards which area of the encryption is important, both from the scientific side as well as the administrative side, right? Administration data we do have. NIH data is a long-term data, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years data, right? So we need to figure out a way to protect all of the data, because right now we don't know. The data is being stored somewhere with the old encryption data, and we don't know when it is going to be broken, right? So we need to look at how big and how depth the data sets are. So that's where we are. We are not panicky, but we are trying to get ourselves, collecting all the data to be ready for the future. But we will be looking for CISA guidelines on this, obviously, and working with the DOE on, pretty broad aspect of what we need to do.
Fantastic. We have hit exactly our time, so I have to say thank you so much to our panelists for keeping us exactly on time. So Ann, Justin, Xavier, thank you for sharing your insights. I hope this was very informative and useful to the audience. So please join me in saying thank you very much.